Hello everyone, Crow here. Got another review request from The Devil Burning to do Sega's CD game, Puggsy. This is your character Puggsy. I just noticed for some reason he's burning a map on this cover. I don't really know why. This is published by Psygnosis. On the back we have story. It goes on and on about Puggsy losing his ship and having to find it. It's time to add brains to your game-playing arsenal. And then it goes on about 50 plus levels of gameplay. Help him find his spaceship. And then the Sega CD version of Puggsy features. And I guess there were only two other versions of Puggsy, one on the Amiga and one on the Genesis, at least according to GameFAQs, that's what I found. Colorful cartoon introduction that brings Puggsy's story to life. Well, I'll get into that cartoon introduction when I get to the footage. And CD quality stereo sound that puts you right into Puggsy's world. Well, it is on a CD, so there you have your CD quality stereo sound. Incredibly animated end of level sequences. Again, I'll get to that. And then introducing total object interaction, which sounds like a total crock, but when you start playing the game, this actually is a big deal, and I'll get into that. So without further ado, let's get into the game. Puggsy! So what we're looking at here is what the box called the colorful cartoon introduction that brings Puggsy's story to life. And it just looks horrible. Not only that, I'm not going to show the whole thing, but there's no voices, nothing that explains what's going on, and I couldn't tell what was going on other than Puggsy's ship crashes at the end. I have no idea what this pirate ship is in space. That's Puggsy's ship, but at the end it just crashes, and it makes no sense at all. Not only that, but the box also claimed incredibly animated end-of-level sequences, and they're basically exactly like these clips here. They're shorter, like 15-second clips where just random stuff happens and it makes no sense at all to me. But there are two positives with these FMV clips. One, you can skip them, and two, you don't really need them to play the game at all. And with that said, let's actually get into some gameplay. Now, the Sega CD version of the game actually includes some junior levels that are really easy, but just take a look at this first level here, and you'll see that they were totally unnecessary. See, the goal of the first level is to actually pick up that object, and then just keep walking right until you walk into the exit. And that is the whole level. 10 seconds, you beat it. But that's not to say that the game is hard. If anything, it's just to get you acclimated to the controls, because the controls are kind of hard to get used to once you start playing the game. With the default controls, C is your jump button, and you can use that to jump on enemies. You could basically defeat them like Mario most of the time. Say most of the time because there are some enemies you can't beat by jumping on them. Your B button is to pick up or drop an object. As you can see I'm doing there. Basically, this level you had to drop the gun and then use the gun to jump onto the ledge by jumping from on top of it. And that kind of logic becomes mandatory to beat levels later on in the game. Your A button actually uses the object you have in your hand. Sort of. If you're holding something like a gun, you can shoot it. If you're holding a shield, that'll temporarily make you invincible. But if you're holding something like a match and you want to light the fuse of a cannon, you can't walk up to the cannon and use the match. It doesn't work that way. For some reason, you have to walk up to the cannon and drop the match on it to fire the cannon. So when I first played this level, I'm walking up there like, okay, I got the match, what's going on? And you see I'm dropping the match, but apparently it's not close enough for the cannon. And then eventually I figured it out and landed the match in the right spot. And you can see here that the cannon goes off and basically allows me to continue on with the game. And actually, that's when you realize that this game isn't a platformer, but it's a platformer/puzzler game, with definitely more emphasis on the puzzle aspect than on the platforming aspect. And that's also when you begin to realize how fun this game is and how unique the controls are. I didn't bring it up at this point, but if you notice, when I'm picking up objects, pushing up and down will actually control the height at which Puggsy is holding those objects. And it really does matter, because some of those objects, sometimes there'll be a platform that you can't get across, and you could use the object that you're holding to hook yourself over the ledge and pull yourself over it. And in that regard, it's that total object interaction that the back of the box had talked about that becomes so important in the game. You're limited by your imagination as to what you could do, and these objects, all have their own, kind of physics almost. Well, not all of them, but like these balls tend to float and bounce a lot more. There's also like a weight that you could use to actually weight yourself down to walk against fans. And, none of this is really described anywhere in the game. I don't know about the manual. I really didn't read the manual, but I had to figure out a lot of this stuff on my own. And actually, it made the game more fun figuring this stuff out. Each puzzle that I had to keep going back and retry again and again made it all the more satisfying when I actually did complete that level. And what started out as kind of a boring and frustrating game at first became really fun over time. And as I thought about it more and more, there really are very few games like this. In fact, I can think of one game that came out very recently that is a very popular DS game that this is almost exactly like, and that's Scribblenauts. The only difference between this and Scribblenauts is that in Scribblenauts, you actually summon the items you want to use, whereas in this game, they're there for you already. You have to find them. You have to figure out how to use them yourself. And I think that this is actually a better game than Scribblenauts, just because you are limited by that, by what's in the level to begin with. I do, however, have a couple more downsides to this game, and one of them is the boss battles. It's not that they're not fun. In fact, they're very fun. The problem is that they're very out of place with the rest of the game. And the reason I say this is because in the normal levels of the game, if you get hit, you lose a life, but you start off exactly where you left off before, and everything still remains where you were before. However, in the boss battles, you actually have a health meter. And when you lose everything in your health meter, you actually don't get to start the boss battle again. You have to complete the last puzzle again, which makes no sense at all. You actually have to go through the whole puzzle again. And, even though you know the solution to the puzzle, you have to play it again. And I just found that really annoying. Some of the boss battles themselves make absolutely no sense. Like the one where you're on a ship with a parrot who's shooting you with a gun, who takes damage from this fish that constantly keeps respawning in the middle of the boat. I mean, that makes no sense at all. And I know video games don't have to make sense, but this is just way out there. And one last negative thing about the game before I wrap this up is that when you do die, you do respawn in exactly the same spot you were. And when you see here, this is the stage that I kind of gave up on, is that if there's something there and you respawn and you can't get away, you're going to die over and over and over again till all your lives are gone. And when I tried to reload my save again, it just didn't work. So I decided to end it there. But overall, Puggsy's a really good game, and its strengths and uniqueness managed to overcome all of its weaknesses to become a really good and fun game. And if you like solving puzzles and taking the time and investigating and trying to figure out puzzles and have the patience for that kind of thing, then this is definitely your type of game. For me, though, I'm going to rate this an 82 out of 100, and I definitely may come back to this later, although I'll be interested in seeing what the Genesis version looks like maybe one day, because all the crappy FMV that they loaded up on the Sega CD version really doesn't matter at all. And I know the Sega CD version may have a few more levels, and I know more boss battles, but the Genesis version may definitely be worth looking into. Alright, looks like I'm out of time. I'll see you all next time.